Your Excellencies, Honorable Delegates, Youth Advocates, I'm Omnia Al-Amrani, a plastic and reconstructive surgeon from Cairo, Egypt, and a member of the Global Youth Coalition for Road Safety. Today marks the launch of the Glasgow Declaration on the acceleration of the transition to zero cars and emissions. As a young medical doctor, I witness every single day patients suffering from asthma, as well as other respiratory diseases and cardiovascular diseases, all due to air pollution, which kills more than 7 million people every year, according to the World Health Organization, and leads to a global loss of over $1 trillion in health damages globally. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen how air pollution has aggravated the vulnerability of the individuals to the virus. Transportation is responsible for over 24% of the global carbon emissions, which lead to air pollution. Cutting down such carbon emissions has benefits for health, economies, as well as reducing inequalities. And yet, action on reducing emissions is not happening fast enough. Not only does this transition to zero-emission vehicles provide health benefits and save lives with a safe and a sustainable road system, it ensures the provision of cleaner air, which leads to less non-communicable diseases, improves physical and mental health, as well as decreasing healthcare costs and economic costs that are incurred due to decreased productivity and premature death. Personally, I see the transition as the next best step that we need to take for the health of our communities and our planet. Now more than ever is the time for governments and all stakeholders to put the declaration into action and close the implementation gap through the use of proven, evidence-based strategies that promote zero-emission vehicles with calculated public health benefits of cleaner air and safer roads. As a young person who will be impacted today by the decisions made, I call upon you all to work together to effectively make zero-emission vehicles the new normal for current and future generations to come. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, Honourable Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending Accelerating the ZEV Transition, a one-way street. My name's Helen Clarkson and I'm Chief Exec of the Climate Group. I'll be moderating this event where we'll be launching the COP26 declaration on accelerating the transition to 100% zero-emission cars and vans and the Global Memorandum of Understanding on zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles. The decarbonisation of road transport is crucial for us to reach our climate goals. So I'm just thrilled to be part of this event, showcasing those leading the transition to zero-emission vehicles. A huge thank you to Omnia for sharing that important message, highlighting one of the vital benefits in transitioning away from polluting vehicles. And with that, I'd like to introduce Trudy Harrison, a Minister from the Department of Transport to the left lectern, and Dutch Minister for the Environment, Steven van Weyenberg, to the right lecture, on the stage to launch the Declaration and Memorandum of Understanding on Zero-Emission Vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning. It really is a pleasure to be here to launch COP26 Transport Day. We have been clear that the overarching aim of this COP is to keep the Paris temperature goal within reach. So it was clear that road transport, which accounts for 10% of global emissions, must be a priority. As a presidency, we have urged governments and manufacturers to commit to end the sale of polluting vehicles. And we decided to build up international collaboration to get the transition to zero-emission vehicles moving faster. We know that success would not just be about the planet, but human health too. Because as Dr. Omnia El-Omani has just said, air pollution from our roads is having a catastrophic effect. The faster we can move away from polluting vehicles poisoning our air, the better. And that means moving to zero-emission vehicles as part of a wider shift, including more cycling, more walking, and more public transport. The changes we have seen sweep through the automotive industry would have looked remote when we took the presidency. Since 2019, globally, the number of zero-emission vehicles on the road has nearly doubled. When we took the COP presidency, no major vehicle manufacturer had committed to end the sale of polluting vehicles. Today, manufacturer commitments to phase out polluting vehicles represent more than 30% of the global manufacturing market. When the UK took the COP presidency, countries representing just 8% of global sales had commitments to phase out polluting cars. But since then, we've seen a string of announcements and proposals, including from the UK, Canada, Chile, and the European Commission. And today, countries with a date to end the sale of polluting vehicles entirely represent a fifth of global sales. Others, like US and China, have also made commitments to rapidly increase the sale of zero-emission vehicles. And as a result, a report released by Bloomberg today predicts that 70% of new car sales globally will be zero-emission by 2040. In 2016, they were predicting it would be just 35%, and there are clear signs that cars have turned a corner. The zero-emission vehicle market is at a tipping point, and the transition is irreversible, moving ever faster and possible sooner than we thought. We are on the cusp of a new age of road transport. An age of zero emissions, quieter roads, cleaner air, and better health. And it's my pleasure today to launch the COP26 declaration on zero-emission cars and vans, which crystallises the progress that we have made in the last 2 years. For the first time, it brings together leading governments, cities, regions, businesses, financial institutions, and multilateral development banks. They commit to work together towards making sure every new car and van sold is zero-emission by 2040 globally and by 2035 in leading markets. Whilst this progress is remarkable, there is further to go. And we must ensure that the transition to clean transport is global. So I'm pleased to announce today that the UK will make an initial contribution to £4 million to the World Bank's new global facility to decarbonise transport. The fund will help mobilise $200 million over the next 10 years to support developing countries to decarbonise their transport faster. The COP26 Zero Emission Vehicles Council will also meet today to identify ways to support the transition in developing countries. And last week, 30 countries signed up to the Glasgow Breakthrough on Road Transport, committing to work together to make zero-emission vehicles the most accessible, affordable and sustainable option in all countries by 2030. Today, we also have hugely encouraging events on shipping, aviation and freight, all setting out ambitious agendas towards net zero. Because we must replicate the success we have seen in zero-emission vehicles in other sectors and drive even faster transformation across all transport sectors throughout this vital decade. And with that, I hand over to Minister Steven van Weyenberg from the Netherlands, who has exciting progress to share on the transition to zero-emission heavy goods vehicles.
Thank you very much, Trudy. Thank you for your leadership, and I applaud your efforts in the declaration you just presented on light-duty vehicles. And it's great to see such a broad support for all cars and vans to be fully zero emissions by 2035. This is indeed a good day for our challenging and necessary battle for a sustainable future and the right for everyone, all of our citizens, to breathe clean air. And our target date in the Netherlands is 2030 to phase out the sale of new carbon cars. An ambitious goal, but a feasible goal, if you look at the pace at which zero-emission transport is developing. Nevertheless, you and I all know that we have to speed up. As COP President Alok Sharma said in his speech at the Zero Emission Vehicles Council last April, the growth of electric vehicles is increasing, but we need to go further and we need to go faster. So it's fantastic that we have more good news today. Today I'm proud to present a new global memorandum of understanding on trucks and buses. An equally important and ambitious agreement to address this often overlooked sector. So-called medium and heavy-duty vehicles. For too long it was deemed too difficult to decarbonize. But technology is improving fast and costs are falling quickly. Almost every day, new and revolutionary zero-emission trucks are coming onto the market. Manufacturers are investing in green innovations for a strong and competitive future for their own company. And by doing so, investing in a sustainable future, cleaner air and new green jobs. Just 2 weeks ago, I had the honor to join our Dutch King, Willem-Alexander, at the launch of a new zero-emission public transport bus, designed and manufactured by a young Dutch company you will probably not have heard of, but you will be hearing of in the future, as of many other companies. With Coalstart, I'd like to thank them for their excellent cooperation. The Netherlands has led a global effort to bring together a leading group of countries to rally behind ambitious targets in a global memorandum of understanding, an MOU, as we present today. Many signatory countries will participate in today's panels, and I'm proud to present the global MOU on behalf of all of them. The purpose of the MOU is simple. To meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, we need carbon emissions to be net zero by 2050. Considering a 10-year turnover time for fleets, we need a full transition to zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles in new fleets by 2040. And to stay on track, a 30% target of new trucks and buses sold to be zero-emission by 2030, the overall aim of the global MOU. The global MOU is not a one-off declaration. Under the Drive to Zero campaign, the signatories of the global MOU intend to meet annually to discuss progress and plans and share their own experiences, with only one goal: to accelerate the deployment of zero-emission trucks and buses. And nations are not alone in striving to make this ambition a reality. I'm pleased that many manufacturers, fleet owners, cities, states, regions, and infrastructure providers have also endorsed this global MOU. That common resolve gives me great confidence that we will transition rapidly to zero-emission lorries and buses, and accelerating innovations, delivering clean technology jobs, better air quality and health, and in that way, a more sustainable climate. And by now you may be wondering who has signed this MOU. And if you open the QR code, you will see the list of signatories and endorsers. And I see their support as a strong signal to speed up the transition to zero-emission trucks and buses. But it is just the beginning. This is just the first step. And we all know we need more countries on the list to make this a global reality. To make a real difference, we need global commitment. And therefore, on behalf of all the signatories of the Global Memorandum of Understanding, I call on all other countries to join our efforts without delay. Together, we're stronger. Together, we're smarter. And if we want to drive to zero, we'd better get in the fast lane soon in order to reap the full range of benefits. So let's fasten our seatbelts and speed up to zero-emission mobility. Thank you so much.
Thank you to both of you for sharing the importance of both the declaration and the MOU. We're shortly going to be hearing from some of those who signed these declarations, and those really signal that we've reached the tipping point in the EV revolution. But before inviting them onto stage, I'd like to introduce a video that highlights the progress that's been made over the last 18 months in really speeding up this transition to zero-emission vehicles. The analysis in this video was developed by Bloomberg New Energy Finance and has been published today. I'd now like to invite our first group of panelists to come to the stage, as well as Bill van Amberg from CalStart, who will be chairing the discussion. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, thanks.
If I can have all of our panelists please join us up on stage, that would be wonderful, and we'll get started here as soon as they do. This is such an exciting day, a phenomenal day when you really think about it. And I think Minister Harrison made this point. We often talk about being at a threshold or a crossroads, but we are right now beyond the crossroads. Sometimes you get blocked at crossroads, they hold you back. We are moving forward on a new path with clarity, an ambitious but achievable goal to reach clean air, decarbonization, and net zero for transport. This is what we're pushing forward to, and for the first time ever, through these two coordinated agreements, we have for road transport, cars, vans, buses, and trucks, a unified global goal, a new standard that puts us on the pathway, as we said, to not just 100% zero emissions, but meeting our Paris requirements, meeting, if we can, 1.5 C or below, but this puts us finally in the transport sector, the on-road sector, to do that. So for the first time for all nations, we have a global standard to follow and to track. Now let us hear from some of the signatories and endorsers who are making this possible, who are the first movers, who are really signing up to push us down this path. And we have a couple questions for this panel today. What is your country or company doing to support a fast transition to ZEVs? And what is the biggest benefit of that transition? Because this is really about creating a new future for transport and for our lives and jobs. So we're very honored to have a great panel. And if I can, let's start first today with Trudy Harrison, Minister in Department for Transport from the United Kingdom, who just spoke with us. The UK has been leapfrogging these deadlines up. It has been so fantastic to see. And last year, you announced an ambitious intention to end the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. How have you seen this announcement benefit the automotive industry in the UK?
Thank you, and thank you really to everybody who's made this milestone pledge at COP26. It is truly inspiring to see governments and industry come together and agree measures to decarbonise road transport within a generation. I'm particularly encouraged by the leadership being shown by the vehicle manufacturers Volvo and Scania, who are sitting on this panel with me today. For so long, the motor car has been emblematic of rising carbon emissions and the damage that human activity inflicts on our planet. Now we have the opportunity to transform that image, for zero-emission cars to become symbolic of our awakening to climate change, of our duty to reverse rising global temperatures as a matter of supreme urgency. Today marks a tipping point in the transition to clean road transport. We've really seen the momentum build over the last 18 months in the run-up to COP. And now it's time to start turning those good intentions into action. So some of the actions that we in the UK have been taken following the launch of the Prime Minister's 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution, where point 4 of that list was a commitment to zero-emission vehicles. We've banned the sale of all petrol and diesel cars and vans from 2030. And we're committed that all vehicles to be sold, all cars and vans to be sold from 2035 will be zero emission. Building on the £1.9 billion we announced last year, we've committed an additional £620 million to support the transition of electric vehicles. And this will continue to roll out the charging infrastructure. We have 26,000 public charge points available today. 4,900 of those are rapid chargers, but it isn't enough. So we've announced a further commitment towards rolling out that infrastructure across the country. And a further £350 million to electrify our supply chain, to create jobs and secure a competitive future for the sector. Through our zero-emission Vehicle Transition Council and international work, we're collaborating with manufacturers and other automotive markets to accelerate transition. And we've really seen dramatic progress, with 1 in 7 of all new vehicles sold in the UK having a plug on them. In particular, UK car manufacturers have been actively supportive of phase-out dates for petrol and diesel, and consumers are much more aware that this is the decade when everything changes. COP26, I'm sure, will accelerate preparations further. Of course, we still have a lot of work to do, bringing more partners on board, but we are incredibly confident of meeting our targets.
Thank you so much. Because we do feel at COP, despite some of the talk outside, tremendous momentum. We're really hitting that point. If I could move next to Volvo Cars, and we have the CEO, Håkan Samuelsson, who is here with us today. Volvo has been a real leader in this space in committing, and one of the first automakers to come forward and say, we will be 100% zero emissions coming very soon. By 2030 is where you will be electrifying all of your platforms. What does this mean to your company to be on this leading edge?
I mean, if you look into transportation, I think it's around 10% of all the CO2 emissions. So it's definitely, we should be a part of the solution. And I think the car industry so far have been too reactive. We should be much more proactive. And with electrification, I also believe we have a very good solution. Not just solving the environmental problem, which I think is not enough. We should also create more attractive products for our consumers, because then the process will be accelerated. And consumers like electric cars. So I think we have come to a point where we should stop in discussing and trying to find other solutions. I mean, the grass is not greener on the other side. It's very green on this side, and we should now start electrifying our companies. And I think also it's a great opportunity for the car industry in Europe, and for sure we have come to the mindset it's great for our company. This is an opportunity, and it makes our company stronger, and we can deliver products consumers, especially future consumers, will like to buy. I think that's really important, because if we can have the market working for better environmental performance, it would be a great support instead of trying to delay it. So we have made electrification and sustainability part of our business, base business, because I think you need to integrate it. You cannot just say, okay, let's make a couple of electric cars, but otherwise we continue as before. we need to make it a purpose. And I think we have experience with that. Exactly in that way we have been working with safety. And it's part of the core of our company, and the electric cars will in the same way be a core part of our business. And it will make our company also more attractive for future talents and for future consumers.
Excellent, and that is such a strong statement. Let's end the debate, let's move on and implement and get it done. Powerful words. Let's go next to a big operator of vehicles on the global stage, Annabelle Diaz. She's the Regional General Manager for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa for Uber. Uber has introduced several initiatives, Annabelle, supporting a fleet-wide transition to zero-emission vehicles. What has the reaction to this been, and what has been the benefit for your business?
Yeah, well, first of all, we must all embrace this once-in-a-generation opportunity to clean up urban transport. And actually, Uber, we will play our part. And we have set ambitious targets in line with this declaration, which include to be an emission-free mobility platform by 2030 in Europe and North America. This means that drivers on our platform will need to become the early mass adopters of EVs. And this is already happening. Actually, the drivers in Europe are switching much faster than the average consumer. The EV uptake in our platform is nearly 5 times quicker in key European countries. The percentage of kilometers driven on our app coming from EVs reached just over 4% in the first half of this year, in Europe specifically, which is a doubling in a year. But we do recognize that we need to increase this pace, and there is still a lot to do. So we will redouble our efforts to help drive EV adoption. This climate issue, this transportation issue, is definitely a team sport, and we can't do this alone. Our success will be defined by how we work with the private sector, with the governments, with the cities, to make it cheaper for the drivers to adopt EVs. Our goal is to do this in countries all around the world. And this transition has to be available and achievable for everyone as quickly as possible. We will learn from the cities we operate all over the world, and we will translate best practices to basically ensure that the transition to EVs is a just one.
Great, and that is so powerful, because this is also part of the new business model for how people will move around, and it must be electrified. Let's move on to our next panelist, and it's a particular delight for me, because being a Californian, I can welcome another Californian, Leanne Randolph. She's the chair of the California Air Resources Board, really one of the most influential agencies in the world, but coming from a subnational. Some people view California as a nation state. But it was one of the first state in the United States of America to announce a transition to zero-emission cars and vans in 2035, and has also committed to this significant goal for heavy-duty vehicles to be 100% zero emissions by 2040. Indeed, our global MOU is built on the backbone of California has done with their advanced clean truck rule. Chair Randolph, what does the transition to clean vehicles mean for California across all modes?
In California, we are moving full speed ahead towards the zero-emission transportation future, because it's critical to achieving both our climate targets and protecting public health. We're working closely across government and the private sector and communities to meet that 100% zero emission target that was set boldly by Governor Newsom. Our governor and legislature recently passed a historic budget, committing almost $4 billion over the next 3 years to transportation electrification, both vehicles and infrastructure. These funds will scale the zero-emission market towards sustainability, increase access to zero-emission vehicles for all communities, and provide emissions reductions to those communities that are most impacted by heavy-duty transportation. Our agency is developing the next generation of clean car regulations, which will increase the market share of electric vehicles as well as clean up the last of the gasoline cars. And we have adopted the first in the world zero-emission, legally enforceable truck manufacturing regulation, and are adopting a complementary regulation that will put an end to medium and heavy-duty combustion sales in California by 2040. Through partnerships with other US states that follow our clean air standards and our clean vehicle rules, the actions we take in California effectively send market signals to about 40% of the US market. We are helping to ensure a broadly based national zero-emission vehicle market. And we're proud to be working with partners around the world to coordinate global efforts to decarbonize the transport sector, including through today's joint declaration and memorandum of understanding. As for the benefits we are experiencing as a result of that transition, electric vehicles were California's largest single export in 2020, and we are coming up on 1 million zero-emission vehicles sold in the state. And it's good business. We are seeing the private sector step up and work hard to make this transition. And even more critical than these economic benefits are the impacts to air quality and the public health benefits that will protect our most vulnerable communities. And that is what truly inspires this transition. And so looking forward to working with all of you as we operationalize this work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think what is so powerful is some of the next jobs are going to be good jobs and need in infrastructure to get out there to actually support the vehicles, in the vehicles, but also the infrastructure side, which I know is a big concern to our next panelist, but also an opportunity. And he is Christian Levin. He is the CEO of Scania. Representing Scania today, he also is the CEO of the Traton Group. You notice you're the only truck maker up here, and that is wonderful because you have stepped out so far. Last year, Scania pledged to phase out diesel by 2040, along with several other European truck makers. But then you stepped up farther in your commitments on zero emissions and your timeline for it. And you have even launched line haul or long haul trucks that will come to market in 2023. Why did you make this decision, and what does it mean for Scania's business?
Thank you, Bill. Yes, as you said, we are the leader in the sustainability journey in our industry, then representing heavy commercial vehicles since many years, and as such, we have, for instance, developed a full range of alternative fuel vehicle program. And since 2019, we're working according to science-based targets, and doing so, we realized that the only way forward is electrification. And we have invested heavily into that technology ever since. And we are actually, not many know it, but we are serial producing heavy commercial trucks in our factory in Södertälje alongside with the ICE engines. Limited today to 28 tons, but as Bill just said, already by 2023, we see that technology is ready for 40 ton, which traditional long haulage transport in Europe. We announced a couple of weeks ago that we are together with a logistic company in Sweden, Jula, developing a 64-ton truck. And actually today we are announcing together with SCA, the giant paper pulp timber company in Sweden, that we're building a timber truck that is capable of transporting 80 ton in North Sweden under most difficult conditions, just to prove that the technology is ready. And then to answer on your question, why are we signing? Well, it feels very natural for us to endorse this MOU because the technology will not be the bottleneck. So with that, of course, I also have a couple of asks. And as California is doing, we need to make sure that the transporters find a suitable business case in investing in this technology. So a price on carbon is badly needed. Another thing is, of course, the grid. We need to make sure that our customers can charge. That is the first question we receive when we discuss electric truck, and that is along the roads as well as in their depots. And of course, finally, up until the point the transition happens, it's extremely important that we don't lose focus on the alternative fuels, the biofuels, the HVOs, because that can do great part of the decarbonization work awaiting for when the park is fully electrified. So now we call upon countries and governments to work alongside with us to put down a roadmap, market by market, and then I think we can actually be ready well ahead of 2040. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was inspiring, and thank you, because this is what we need to do, is put our shoulder down and work it. I am delighted, actually, to welcome our final panelist for first comments. The nation of Turkey is actually a signatory to both the declaration and the MOU, so covering the waterfront. And joining us today is Mr. Orhan Solak, who is with he's the Director General of the Presidency of Climate Change for Turkey. Turkey has signed the MOU and and the declaration. You also have a robust manufacturing industry in transport, both for components and for vehicles. What does this transition to zero emissions then mean for Turkey? Why is it so important?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we all know, the mobility sector is the second largest sector that causes carbon dioxide emissions. With the increasing urbanization and population, the importance and necessity of advanced mobility vehicles and technologies are increasing each passing day. New technologies are rapidly transforming traditional structures dating back to the last century. In this context, electric mobility is undoubtedly one of the most prominent concepts. As Turkey, we believe that call for mobility will create a significant leverage effect in achieving the goals set under this roadmap. In the mobility roadmap, some of the targets we have set for 2030 are as follows: reaching at least 75% localization rate in electrical vehicle, having 35% market share for electric vehicle sales in total, installation of 250,000 charging sockets, completing charging infrastructure in electrical vehicles, being the leader in Europe and one of the top 5 in the world in the production of electric, connected and autonomous light and heavy commercial vehicles, being a regional battery production center. As you can see, our targets for zero-emission vehicles are in full compliance with this declaration and MOU that we have launched today. And as Turkey, we are pleased to be a part of these initiatives. Another significance of these initiatives comes also from the international cooperation they will provide in the upcoming period. As the customs union partner of the EU, Turkey exports 80% of its automotive production to the EU member states. Therefore, we are closely following the EU regulations and carrying out simultaneous transposition of the EU legislation. Last but not least, we support the declaration and the MOU since they will accelerate the meeting the goals of the Paris Agreement. By involving a wide range of representatives of major automotive industries, these two initiatives take the transition to zero-emission vehicles to a global scale. Recent studies show that an ambitious zero-emission vehicle transition may conclude a 61% reduction in CO2 emissions worldwide as of 2050. This is a huge potential, and as Turkey, we are excited about the positive contribution we can make to climate change globally, as well as realizing our national goals through all kinds of bilateral and multilateral cooperation aimed at the transition to zero-emission vehicles. As I end my remarks here, I would like to express my gratitude on behalf of my country to all parties who contributed to the preparation of this declaration and MOU and the organization of this event. And I respectfully greet you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think what we're hearing here is so powerful. We know we need to do it. We must act for climate. We must do it for the clean air in our cities, which must happen at the same time. But we also must do it for our new economy and for moving our people together forward. And I think we're hearing powerful economic reasons and industrial reasons why this makes so much sense. We have just a few moments left, but I would like to actually ask for some quick comments from our panelists on what do we need to be working together on next. We've heard about infrastructure, there's finance, there's other things. I'd like to quickly get, Minister Harrison, may we speak with you first on that?
Certainly, and thank you for the challenge. I think it is many things, but certainly sharing data, sharing an understanding of infrastructure rollout will be particularly helpful for countries all over the world as we transition from a fossil-fueled economy to a decarbonised economy, particularly in relation to transport and actually across all modes, ensuring that this is of benefit to not just the environment, to society. For us in the UK, it's about levelling up and making sure that all parts of the UK benefit from the changes that we're bringing in enthusiastically and with swift action.
Thank you so much. Håkan, any thoughts that you'd like to share on what do we need to do next and faster?
Yeah, it's if you look, if we now have electric cars, of course, then infrastructure for charging has been said many times. I'm not too nervous about that. I think the market will solve that as cars come out on the road. But the big elephant is, of course, the primary energy need to be fossil-free. And that's where I think also is the beauty of such a clear declaration, because if we now say end date, I think we will also have to start thinking about the primary energy. I think that's good. We have to work then also in the supply chain, because we have a lot of embedded CO2 in our cars. We'll need to look into how to produce steel fossil-free, and we do that together with SSAB. And very important, battery production must also be fossil-free, otherwise you will build in more than you gain with the car. And that's where we also work then with Northvolt. So it's embedded CO2 in the whole supply chain, and primary energy, I think, are the big things we need now to really work with together.
Excellent. And the benefits of a unified goal that we can all follow gives us clarity on where we need to go. Annabelle, some quick thoughts from you.
Yeah, well, I can only insist on the topic of infrastructure development, availability, and different solutions for EV charging. This is actually one of the main bottlenecks our commercial drivers still face when switching to an EV, and making the cost of operating an EV still higher than a traditional car in many, many cities and countries around the world. That's a fundamental topic. But alongside that topic, also keep developing enabling policies that will make this transition, and the transition to, in general, an efficient transportation network that the technology can allow, possible and fast. Because we need to really think mobility, thinking multimodal, and thinking integration of systems.
Thank you so much. And thinking of going faster, our panel is almost to an end, but if I can have some quick thoughts, first from Chair Randolph.
I think in this transition, we need to be very mindful of equity. We need to make sure that these new vehicles are available to as many folks as possible. And we need to be mindful of sourcing our materials, reusing and recycling our materials in ways that don't impact vulnerable communities even further. So we need to have a clear mind towards equity as we do this work.
Excellent point. Christian?
Yes, no one buys a commercial vehicle because they like it. They buy it as a piece of production equipment, part of a logistic chain, and they need to get the total cost of ownership, the famous TCO right, so that they get return on investment. I think that'll be the biggest challenge, that we make sure that it's a good business case to go completely fossil-free and zero emission. That's our biggest challenge, and that requires that we work together across all sectors and with policymakers.
Yeah, and that's why this global alignment is so important, that it's not just for cars, it's not just for vans, it's for buses, trucks, and across on-road.
Exactly.
Final thoughts, if we can, from Mr. Solak on this point. What do we need to push forward faster and do it now?
Yes, of course, there are important barriers and challenges in this MOU and declaration when we are looking, such as higher electrical vehicle prices compared to low-cost internal combustion engine vehicles. Lack of the regulation is another issue, and inadequate charging infrastructure, and lack of public awareness. These are important issues. However, we also have great opportunities in making this transition quicker, easier, and cheaper for all. We believe that much progress will be made both in the production and electrical vehicles and also on the side of charging a legal infrastructure by means of a strong international collaboration needed for this purpose.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We clearly now have a global goal. We have a North Star. We've moved past the crossroads that were holding us back, and we've moved down the path. It's clear, it's hard, it's achievable. And I think even a few years ago, we would have thought heavy-duty trucks in northern Sweden carrying logs, it can be done. And if it can be done there, we take off the table this talk of difficult duty cycles that maybe we can't electrify. We can. But we need to put our shoulders to the wheel and get it done. So this is so exciting for us. The job is now, we're past the crossroads. Now it's time to implement. We are dedicated to it. With the MOU, we will be working with the existing first signatories, but adding more signatories over the next year. So thank you so much. Let's really thank our panelists of First Movers. They have done such a great job in giving us this idea. And I hand the floor, Helen, back over to you.
Thank you very much to all of you for being part of our first panel. It's really great to hear about the ambitious steps being taken to increase the pace of this transition. And thank you so much to Bill and for all your work, chairing this discussion, but really your amazing work supporting transport decarbonisation at CalStart. So this morning, as well as this event, we've launched a new website which will host the COP26 declaration on ZEVs. You'll be able to find all of those who've signed the declaration, and it's a really fantastic list of supporters. And we're now going to watch a few clips from other ministers and industry leaders who are supporting this work.
We must go faster.
We must go faster. We must go faster.
We must all go faster.
We got to go faster.
We must go faster.
And we must go faster.
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 And we must go faster.
We must go faster.
We must go faster because the future is for zero-emission vehicles. I need to go faster. You need to go faster. And all the world and all the countries need to go faster. In Denmark, we're very ambitious. The last new car with internal combustion engine is to be sold no later than 2030. And that's why I'm very glad that so many countries have gone together, businesses, regions, everyone, and say, we want to sign this very ambitious declaration because the future is for zero-emission vehicles.
Greetings, I am Marta Suplicy, Municipal Secretary of International Relations for the City of São Paulo. The launch of the Transport Day Declaration is an opportunity for stakeholders worldwide to show their support for such a central topic for the next decade. Here in São Paulo, we have been working in alignment with the decarbonization goals proposed by the declaration. We are currently mobilizing our most enthusiastic efforts in order to achieve our targets for fully transforming our municipal bus fleet towards zero emission by 2040, as stated in our Climate Action Plan, PLAN Clima. Our goals program also foresees a change in 2,600 vehicles, or 20% of our total, 14,000 already by 2024. All these milestones are key to ensuring that São Paulo will fulfill its goal to become an increasingly greener and sustainable city where climate action is a priority.
Our ambition and responsibility as an automaker is to help fight climate change by making individual mobility free of emissions. We joined the ZEV Declaration to reinforce this goal and stand with our fellow signatories in working toward a future of zero-emission cars and vans. At our company, we have accelerated our plan to fully and rapidly electrify our products, and we've laid out a clear strategy on how we will get there. In 2025, we will take the step from EV first to EV only. From that year forward, all new Mercedes vehicle architectures will be purely electric. And by the end of this decade, we will be ready to go 100% electric wherever market conditions allow. In addition, as early as the beginning of next year, all global passenger car and battery assembly sites run by Mercedes-Benz AG will switch to carbon-neutral production. Still, while the e-mobility ramp-up continues to gain traction, the charging infrastructure lags behind. To catch up, we need better coordination and a comprehensive approach involving all regions. Political decision makers need to accelerate the buildup of a comprehensive electric charging and hydrogen refueling infrastructure. I'm convinced that tomorrow's mobility cannot be shaped by bans and regulations alone. What we need is a fair global competition that produces the best solutions and technologies. We also need alliances, because the only way we can win the fight against climate change is by acting together. The fact that countries, regions, cities, and companies from around the globe have jointly signed this declaration builds my confidence that our ambitious goals for the transformation of the mobility sector are within reach. I firmly believe that by working hand in hand, we can succeed in making individual mobility CO2 neutral. We must go faster, and I hope by leading the way, others will soon follow our ambition.
And if you'd like to see further content from those supporting the COP26 Cars and Vans Declaration, please head to www.cop26transport.declaration.org, which we launched this morning. And I'd now like to welcome to the lectern Matthew Baldwin, Deputy Director General for DG Move in the European Commission, to the stage. Matthew will be sharing how the European Commission is supporting a faster transition to zero-emission vehicles.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Delighted to be with you this morning. The European Commission welcomes the declaration we've just been hearing about as part of a broader push towards sustainable mobility. So we're very grateful for the chance to set out our views on these extremely important issues and to put it in a slightly broader transport context. The European Green Deal pledges to make the EU the first climate-neutral continent by 2050 and sets a 55% reduction target by 2030 as the key stepping stone towards that. We're backed for the first time by a European climate law, which makes this 55% reduction legally binding on the member states of the European Union. It's not whether we reduce emissions by 55%, it's how we do it. So the next imperative, of course, is to set out the detailed plans to ensure that emissions come down sharply in all sectors. Transport, as we've heard, is responsible for about 25% of all emissions. We need to cut our transport emissions by 90% by 2050, which is why we came forward with our Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy adopted in 2020 and now being rolled out as part of our Fit for 55 package in July, a balanced mixture of instruments using market instruments such as carbon pricing combined with regulatory measures. As part of this, shifting rapidly to zero-emission vehicles is indispensable, but on its own, it's clearly not going to be enough. It is, as we say, necessary but not sufficient. Moving towards a zero-emission fleet should be part of a broader approach to sustainable and smart multimodal mobility. All of our modes must be sustainable, which means, for example, we need to boost the role of sustainable aviation and maritime fuels. We also need to ensure that sustainable alternatives to cars are available. We need much more use of rail transport, highlighted in the European Year of Rail 2021. In our cities, we need more use of public transport. We need more walking, more cycling as part of the move towards climate-neutral cities by 2030. So, as part of this great declaration today, please let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. Specifically, however, on zero-emission vehicles, stronger CO2 emissions standards for cars and vans will accelerate this vital transition to zero-emission mobility. The European Commission has proposed to require that the average emissions of new cars should come down again by 55% from 2030 compared to 2021 levels, and all the way down to 100% by 2035. That proposal is now on the table of our member states and on the table of the European Parliament. In addition, our proposals for the revised alternative fuels infrastructure regulation will require member states themselves to drive hard for the deployment of the related infrastructure. We need to ensure that consumers can recharge or refuel anywhere in the European Union without hassle. And these efforts are further complemented by the proposal for the revision of the Renewable Energy Directive. This seeks to strongly increase the share of renewable transport fuels. And under the Energy Taxation Directive, we're going to align the taxation of energy products with our overall energy and climate policies. And last but not least, you'll have heard a lot about it in the last week or so, the ETS. For many years already, the European Union's emissions trading system has been a cornerstone of our climate policy framework. It delivers tangible emission reductions. We will lower the overall emission cap even further. We're going to increase its annual rate of reduction, and we're going to extend emissions trading to new sectors, including road transport. And last but not least, fairness, equity, and solidarity are an essential part of our policy architecture. For example, as part of our package in July, we've proposed a new social climate fund to provide dedicated funding to our member states to help citizens finance investments in energy efficiency, in new heating and cooling systems, and indeed in cleaner mobility. So, the EU is as ambitious on transport as we are in other sectors, and zero-emission vehicles will play an important role in our plans as part of that bigger agenda to ensure sustainable mobility overall. We'll continue to pursue this partnership, this agenda, with industry, with other countries right across the world, and so it's been great for me to have this opportunity today to share these plans with you. Thank you very much indeed.